My best friend died 4 months ago. His name was Walter. Everyone called him Walt. We met in 1972, and for the next 52 years, he was my best friend, my partner, my brother in every way that matters. And when he died, a part of me died with him. I'm Arthur Mitchell. Most people call me Art. I'm 79 years old. I've lived in Pittsburgh my whole life, worked as an auto mechanic for over 40 years, married my wife Maggie in 1970. We raised 2 kids, got 6 grandkids now. By most measures, I've had a good life, a full life. But right now, sitting here, all I can think about is the empty seat across from me at the diner. The phone that doesn't ring on Sunday nights anymore. The person who knew me better than anyone on this earth. Gone. I'm not good at this stuff. Talking about feelings, opening up. That's not how I was raised. Men in my generation, we were taught to keep it inside, push through. Don't show weakness. But I'm 79 years old, and my best friend just died, and I've got some things I need to say. Not for me, for you. Because maybe if I tell you what I learned, you won't make the same mistakes I did. Let me tell you how Walt and I met. It was 1972. I was 27 years old, working at a garage across town. Got off work late one Friday night, covered in grease, exhausted. Stopped at this bar called the Iron Horse. Little place, nothing fancy. Working class neighborhood. Just wanted a beer before I went home. I sat down at the bar, and there was this guy next to me. Same situation. Grease under his fingernails. Oil stains on his shirt. Looked like he'd been wrestling with transmissions all day. Which, as I found out later, he had been. We started talking. Just small stuff at first. What kind of cars we worked on. Which shops were hiring. Who had the worst customers. But then we kept talking. About our families, our dreams, what we wanted out of life. We closed down that bar. Sat there until 2 a.m. Just 2 strangers who weren't strangers anymore. When we finally walked out, Walt turned to me and said, "You know what, Art? I think you and me are going to be good friends." And I laughed and said, "Yeah, I think you might be right. That was 52 years ago." And he was right. He was more right than either of us could have known. Some friendships you choose. Some friendships choose you. Walt chose me that night at the Iron Horse, and I'm grateful every single day that he did. Within a year, we were inseparable. Our wives became friends. We had barbecues together, took family vacations together. Our kids grew up together. But it wasn't just the social stuff. Walt and I, we understood each other in a way that's hard to explain. We could sit in complete silence for an hour, and it wouldn't be awkward. We could say more with a look than most people say with 100 words. In 1975, we did something crazy. We quit our jobs and opened an auto shop together. Mitchell and Kowalski Auto. Put everything we had into it. Our savings, our sweat, our sanity. Maggie thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But I trusted Walt with my life, and he trusted me with his. That's all that mattered. That first year, we nearly went bankrupt twice. Worked 70-hour weeks, at dinner in the garage most nights. There were moments when I thought we'd made a terrible mistake. Moments when the stress was so bad I couldn't sleep. But you know what? Walt never ran, never blamed me, never said we should give up. Every morning he showed up with coffee and a smile and said, "All right, Art, let's figure this out." And we did. We always did. That's what real friendship is. It's not about the good times. Anyone can be there for the good times. Real friendship is about the hard times, the scary times, the times when everything is falling apart and you don't know what to do. That's when you find out who your real friends are. Walt was my real friend, and I really hope I was his too. We ran that shop together for almost 30 years, side by side, every day. We had our disagreements, sure. We'd argue about which parts to order, how to handle a difficult customer, whether to expand or stay small. Sometimes we'd get so mad at each other we wouldn't talk for a day or 2. But here's the thing, we always came back. We always worked it out. Because the friendship was bigger than any argument. The trust we had built over years, wasn't going to be destroyed by some stupid disagreement about brake pads. I see people today, they throw away friendships over nothing. Someone says the wrong thing on social media. Friendship over. Someone disagrees with your politics. Never speak to them again. And I think, you have no idea what you're throwing away. You have no idea how rare real friendship is. How precious. How irreplaceable. Walt and we disagreed about plenty of things. He voted different than me. He liked different music. He thought my taste in cars was terrible, and I thought the same about his. None of that mattered. What mattered was that when I needed him, he was there. And when he needed me, I was there. Everything else is just noise. In 1989, Walt's marriage fell apart. His wife left him for another man, someone she worked with. I'll never forget the night Walt called me. 3 a.m. He could barely speak. He was drunk and crying and saying he didn't know how he was going to survive this. I got in my car and drove to his apartment, found him sitting on the floor with an empty bottle of whiskey and a look in his eyes that scared me. Like the light had gone out. Like he was thinking about doing something permanent. I didn't know what to say. I've never been good with words, but I sat down next to him on that floor, and I stayed there all night. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer advice. Just sat there so he wouldn't be alone. For the next year, I showed up at his place every single night after work. I'd bring food because he wasn't eating. I'd pour out the bottles I found because he was drinking too much. I'd drag him out of the house on weekends to go fishing, even when he said he didn't want to go. Some nights we'd just sit on his porch and not say a word. Just 2 guys watching the sun go down, letting the silence do the talking. And slowly, week by week, month by month, the light came back into his eyes. He started eating again, laughing again, living again. Years later, Walt told me that I saved his life during that time, that if I hadn't shown up every night, he doesn't know what he would have done. I never thought of it as saving his life. I was just being there, just showing up. That's what friends do. But I guess that's the point. Sometimes just showing up is saving someone's life. Sometimes just being present. Just proving that somebody gives a damn is the difference between someone making it through and someone giving up. We don't think about it that way in the moment. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels ordinary. But those ordinary acts of loyalty, those everyday decisions to show up for someone, they're not ordinary at all. They're everything. I got my turn in 2016. My brother Henry died suddenly. Heart attack. He was fine one day, gone the next. No warning, no goodbye. Just a phone call that ripped my world apart. I fell apart. I mean really fell apart. My brother and I were close. Grew up sharing a bedroom. Fought like cats and dogs when we were young. But as adults, we'd become good friends. And suddenly he was gone, and I didn't know how to handle it. Walt showed up at my house the day after the funeral. Didn't call first, didn't ask if I needed anything. Just showed up with a case of beer and sat down on my porch. I said, Walt, I don't really feel like talking. And he said, that's okay, Art, we don't have to talk. We can just sit. So we sat for hours, watching the neighborhood, listening to the birds, saying nothing. And somehow, that silence said everything. It said, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to carry this alone. He came over every day for a month. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we just watch football. Sometimes I cry, and he put his hand on my shoulder and let me. He never tried to fix it, never said stupid things like he's in a better place now, or time heals all wounds. He just stayed. That's what 40 years of friendship looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's just 2 people who keep showing up for each other, no matter what, through divorces and deaths, through failures and fears, through all the messy, painful stuff that life throws at you. After we both retired in 2002, we started a new tradition, breakfast at the diner every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 a.m. sharp, same booth by the window, same orders, I got the eggs and bacon, he got the pancakes. We'd sit there for 2 hours sometimes, just talking about nothing. The weather, the Steelers, what the grandkids were up to, our aching knees and bad backs. None of it was important. All of it was important. Those Tuesday and Thursday mornings became the rhythm of my retirement, the thing I looked forward to more than anything else. For 20 years we kept that tradition, only missed it for illness or emergencies. It was sacred. Our time, our booth, our friendship distilled into 2 mornings a week of coffee and conversation. 18 months ago, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was Walt. His voice was different, quieter, heavier. He said, "Art, I need to tell you something. Can you come over?" I knew before I even got there. You spend 52 years with someone. You learn to read the spaces between their words. Something was very wrong. I drove to his house, found him sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. I sat down next to him and waited. Finally, he said it. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor said maybe a year, probably less. I didn't know what to say. What do you say when someone tells you they're dying? When the person who's been by your side for half a century suddenly has an expiration date? I just sat there, feeling the world tilt sideways. After a long silence, Walt turned to me and said, "Well, Art, looks like you're buying breakfast from now on." And I laughed. We both laughed. Sitting there on his porch with a death sentence hanging in the air, and we're laughing about who's going to pay for pancakes. That's who Walt was. Even facing the end, he was trying to make me feel better, trying to carry some of my pain so I wouldn't have to carry it all alone. The next 18 months were the hardest of my life, harder than building the business, harder than losing my brother. Watching your best friend die slowly is a kind of torture I wouldn't wish on anyone. I was there for every chemo session, sat next to him in those cold hospital chairs while they pumped poison into his veins, hoping it would give him a few more months. I watched him get thinner, watched his hair fall out, watched the strongest man I knew become fragile, become weak, become someone I barely recognized. But you know what? We still had breakfast. Every Tuesday and Thursday that he was well enough, we went to that diner. Sometimes he could barely eat. Sometimes he'd just have a few bites of pancake and push the plate away. But he was there. We were there. In our booth, holding on to the routine like a lifeline, because as long as we still had Tuesday morning breakfast, everything was still okay. He was still here. Toward the end, he couldn't make it to the diner anymore, so I brought breakfast to him, picked up his pancakes, drove to his house, and we ate together in his living room. It wasn't the same, but it was something. It was us, still showing up for each other, even when showing up was all we had left. The last few weeks he was in the hospital. I visited every day. Sometimes he was awake and we'd talk. Sometimes he was sleeping, and I'd just sit there watching him breathe, counting each breath like it was precious, because it was. Every breath was one less he had left. 4 months ago, I got the call from his daughter. She said, "Art, you should come now. It's time." I drove to that hospital faster than I've ever driven anywhere. Ran through those hallways like a man half my age, and when I got to his room, he was still there, still breathing, still fighting, even though the fight was almost over. I pulled a chair up next to his bed and took his hand. It was so thin, so cold. This man who used to have a grip like a vise, who could torque a bolt tighter than anyone I knew, his hand felt like paper in mine. He opened his eyes and looked at me. And even though he could barely speak, even though every breath was a struggle, he smiled. That same crooked smile from the night we met at the Iron Horse. He squeezed my hand and said, "Best 52 years of my life, Art. Thank you." And I finally said what I should have said 1,000 times before. I said, "I love you, Walt. You're my brother, and I'm grateful for every single day." He smiled again and said, "I know. Always did." He closed his eyes after that, didn't open them again. 2 hours later, he was gone, and I sat there holding his hand, not ready to let go. Not ready to accept that the person who had been my other half for 52 years was never going to laugh at my jokes again. Never going to argue with me about football. Never going to slide into that booth across from me and ask how Maggie was doing. The funeral was a blur. Hundreds of people came. People from the shop, neighbours, family, people whose cars we'd fixed over the years. Everyone had a story about Walt. Everyone had a memory. And I stood there shaking hands and accepting condolences, feeling like I was watching myself from outside my body. My son Tom gave the eulogy. He talked about what a good man Walt was, what a loyal friend. He told stories that made people laugh and cry. And all I could think was, that's my friend he's talking about. Was my friend. Was. After the funeral, everyone went home. Life went back to normal for everyone else. But not for me. For me, nothing has been normal since. I still go to the diner every Tuesday and Thursday. 8 a.m. Same booth. I order my eggs and bacon, and I sit there looking at the empty seat across from me. The seat where Walt used to sit, where he should be sitting right now. The waitress, Maria, she's known us for years. The first few times I came in alone, she started to ask about Walt. Then she saw my face and stopped. Now she just brings my coffee and gives me a sad smile and leaves me alone with my thoughts. Sometimes I talk to him. I know that sounds crazy. An old man sitting in a diner booth talking to nobody. But I tell him about the grandkids, about what Maggie made for dinner, about the Steelers game last Sunday. I tell him the things I would have told him if he were here. Because even though he's gone, I'm not ready to stop talking to him. I'm not ready to let go of the ritual that held my life together for 20 years. My kids worry about me. They say, Dad, you need to move on. You need to make new friends, join a club, do something. And I know they mean well. I know they're scared of losing me too. But here's what they don't understand. I'm 79 years old. I don't want new friends. I want my friend. The one who knew me for 52 years. The one who remembered who I was when I was young and strong and full of dreams. The one who could finish my sentences and read my silences and know exactly what I was thinking without me saying a word. You don't replace that. You can't. You just learn to live with the hole it leaves. When Walt died, he took part of my history with him. He was the last person alive who remembered things about me that no one else knows. The last person who could say, hey Art, remember that time we almost burned down the shop trying to fix that old Cadillac? The last person who knew the full story of my life because he was there for most of it. There are things about myself that I'll never be able to share with anyone now. Memories that only Walt would understand. Inside jokes that don't make sense without him. A whole chapter of my life that's closed forever because the only other person who is in it is gone. That's the thing about long friendships. They're not just about having someone to talk to. They're about having a witness to your life. Someone who can confirm that yes, you existed. Yes, you mattered. Yes, those things really happened. When that witness is gone, a part of your story goes with them. If you're watching this and you have someone like that in your life, I need you to hear me. Don't take them for granted. Don't assume they'll always be there. Don't cancel plans because you're tired. Don't put off phone calls because you're busy. Don't leave things unsaid because you think you'll have time later. You might not have time later. I thought Walt and I would have forever. Or at least more than we got. And now I sit in that diner booth alone, wishing I could have back every breakfast I ever skipped, every phone call I didn't make. Every time I said, let's get together next week and then let next week slip away. Those moments you think don't matter, they matter. Those ordinary Tuesdays when nothing special happens, they're everything. Those conversations about nothing, about the weather, about sports, about whatever, they're not about nothing. They're about saying, I choose to spend my time with you. You're important to me. You matter. I never told Walt that enough. I assumed he knew, and maybe he did. He said he did, there at the end. But I should have said it more. Should have said it every Tuesday and Thursday for 20 years. Should have said, Walt, I'm glad you're my friend. I'm glad we built that shop together. I'm glad you were there when my brother died. I'm glad for all of it. I'm saying it now. But now is too late. You can't hear me anymore. So I'm telling you instead. I'm telling you what I wish I'd understood before I was 79 years old, sitting alone in a diner booth crying into my coffee. Friendship is not a given. It's a gift. And like any gift, it needs to be appreciated, nurtured, honored. You have to show up. You have to make time. Your teachers, and the words out loud, even when it feels awkward, even when you're not the type of person who says things like that. If you've got a friend who's been with you through the years, call them today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Tell them what they mean to you. Make plans to see them. And when you see them, be present. Put down your phone. Look them in the eye. Listen like it matters. Because it does. More than you know. 52 years, that's what Walt and I had. Thousands of conversations, hundreds of meals, countless moments of laughter and silence and everything in between. And it still wasn't enough. I would give anything for one more breakfast. One more argument about football. One more night on the porch with a couple of beers watching the sunset. But I can't have that. All I have now is the memory. And this video. And the hope that maybe, if you're listening, you'll learn from my loss and hold on to your people a little tighter. I'm 79 years old. I've loved and lost and learnt more than I ever wanted to about saying goodbye. And here's what I know for sure. At the end of your life, you won't care about your job title or your bank account or how many followers you had. You'll think about the people you loved, the friends who showed up, the ones who saw you at your worst and stayed anyway. That's what matters. That's all that matters. Walt, if you can hear me somehow, thank you. Thank you for 52 years. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being my brother. I'll keep going to the diner on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll keep ordering your pancakes even though I can't eat them. I'll keep talking to you even though you can't answer. Because that's what friends do. They show up. Even when it hurts, even when it doesn't make sense, they show up. If this meant something to you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me about the person who's been there for you, the one you couldn't live without. I read every comment while I'm still here, and subscribe, because I've got more to share. More lessons from 79 years of living and losing and loving anyway. Call your friend today. Tell them what they mean to you. Don't wait. Because one day, one of you won't be here anymore. And you'll wish you had more time. You always wish you had more time.